Hey guys, hope all of you are doing fine. This is the part 6 of the Being Reborn in Marvel with Gamer's ability. Marvel Gamer Part 6. I was strong. Very strong. The feeling was unreal. I felt unstoppable, which was idiotic thinking. I knew there were things outside Earth that could kill me, but still, I felt like an entirely different person. My mind was, I don't know how to describe it, more awake. Things that I didn't seem to understand before, things I didn't even know I didn't understand, I now did. Everything, from my muscles to my mind, was operating on an entirely different level. It was an odd, yet welcoming feeling. If I had to depict what I was feeling, I would say it was somewhat similar to being high, but in a healthy and good way. Not sure if one can use healthy and high together, but it was how I felt. I was elated, but I was also scared. Before today, I had never had any problems with my physical strength. Controlling it before today was instinctual. Perhaps it had been easier because before today my gains had been somewhat slow compared to the sudden burst of power I had gotten. It was honestly terrifying. In just 1 hour since my rebirth as a super soldier, I had broken no less than 8 things. My mind and my might were uncoordinated. My mind still operated with my previous strength, but my body was beyond that. I needed training, I needed to adjust. And what better way to adjust than testing the very limits of my skills? I needed to grind. Raids and dungeons, I mean. It was more than clear, I had been neglecting them for quite a while, mostly out of my obsession to complete my little project, which was now done. But now, I had nothing to do. Yes, I had to be a father a few hours a day when the girls were at home, but that didn't consume much of my time. My company was making money, thanks to my CEO. I really had nothing stopping me now, no excuse. It was time to, as I said, grind. And what better way to start than by doing some dungeons? I had one in particular that I wanted to do, the Holy of the Damned. The title was interesting enough, and the recommended levels were 150 to 165, good enough to test things out. Okay, here I go, I said, opening a portal to where the dungeon was located. The dungeon started like any other, with me inside a cave with a creature standing in front of me, with my objectives for the dungeon. The quest for the dungeon, though, it was confusing. Find that which cannot be seen, and kill what cannot be killed. No description. But I paid it no mind. Things like that usually were nothing but ridiculous turns of events that I would see somewhere in the dungeon to make it more engaging. Besides, my plans in dungeons were quite straightforward: kill everything inside the dungeon, and hope that counts as completed. So far it had worked in all of the dungeons I had done. With a sigh, I started the dungeon, by taking the first step into the depths of the cave. Soon enough, I encountered a few mobs, or patrols as I called them, walking the area, so I did what any man with newfound power would have done in my situation. I jumped them, punching the mobs with my bare hands. After all, I was here to test my physical might, and to find the limits of said might. It came to no surprise the monsters barely resisted my assault, monsters of my level, dying with surprising ease. My newfound power made things easier in the physical sense. It was shocking, really. One punch and I would send a 3-meter-tall centaur flying into a wall like I was Superman or something. It was exhilarating. I felt like a kid, putting a cheat code on GTA San Andreas, the one that makes you punch like a god. That's how I felt, and it was intoxicating. Maybe I was adorating my new power a bit too much, but can anyone blame me? I worked so hard for the serum, and now the results, they were beyond my wildest dreams. Granted, I was technically a super soldier in terms of stats before the serum, and the serum changed my entire body on a genetic level to become more than what already was, so it was to be expected that the results would turn out to be better than with Steve and Bucky. The possibilities right now were essentially endless. But I wasn't gonna get ahead of myself. For now, I would continue to see where my limits laid, and learn in the process how to control my powers. The idea of hurting Emily, or Nat, was painful, more so than one could possibly imagine. So, before the end of the day, I needed to understand everything about my new self. This dungeon would be my lab, and those monsters, my test subjects. Intruder! A Minotaur shouted, running towards me with a spear in my hands. That's me, I waved at the Minotaur with a smile. The day was young, and I had much to do. Unknown POV. Alex's future, it pained me to know so much about it, but not be able to share it, for like a secret, once the future it's shared, it stops being what it is, it ceases to exist. So much pain was ahead of him, so much sacrifice, but he had to endure it, for the sake of this reality. He was the champion of his reality, ignorant to the schemes of the universe, yet essential to its survival, an ironic yet necessary path. This world, this reality, it would break him, it would shatter him, but from the dust of his pain, from the pieces of his suffering, he would rise to do what he was born to do what he had been chosen to do in this universe. Unfortunately, he had no choice. The moment he woke up here, his destiny had been written. I finished the dungeon with little to no difficulty, testing my strength in the process. The bosses still proved to be difficult, nonetheless, I was victorious, defeating each challenge in the dungeon with relative ease, including the bosses, who while still a challenge of its own, they were at best a nuisance. Now, it was all a matter of continuing my training and learning how to control my newfound strength. Anyways, after I finished the dungeon, I did another, and then another, and another, so on, until the night came, where I went back home to eat dinner with the girls. As expected, Nat asked if I had taken magical steroids, to which I laughed. I mean, in a way, she was right. After all, what other explanation to me getting 30 pounds of muscle mass overnight could there be? As for Emily, she just shrugged it off as something normal, which, to be honest, considering the things she sees on a daily basis with the Ancient One, it's to be expected. Bucky, however, was mad that I had ruined his metal arm with a visible dent. Well, he wasn't mad, more like annoyed his arm was not in pristine conditions, so I did what a friend with money and resources would have done. I started a new project, just for him. Project, new arm, 'cause I am sorry. I had enough vibranium and adamantium to forge him an arm, one that would never break down, but why stop there? Why not give him an upgrade? I mean, having an indestructible arm was good and all, but what if the arm had some gadgets on it? Like, I don't know, a very powerful inbuilt taser. Or, I don't know, retractable finger claws. I mean, anything I added would effectively make his arm better by a long shot. So, I started to work on it after dinner. First, I took his arm off, which sounds terrible without context. Then, using his Hydra arm, I made some schematics by reverse engineering the arm. Then, I made a template of what I wanted, discussing it with Bucky. I mean, it was his arm I was making, after all. Eventually, I had the list of things he wanted on his arm alongside the list of things I wanted to add besides his requests, and so, with both lists at hand, I started to work. 3 days later, the arm was complete. I didn't leave the lab unless it was to pick the girls up from school or to eat. Working on the arm had proved to be the perfect training when it came to finesse. Newfound strength meant being delicate was extra hard. Regardless of that, I came up victorious. Finishing his arm, which had a long list of modifications on it. Tarza function. Blade function, a blade made entirely out of adamantium that cut almost through anything like it was butter. Kinetic force absorption and redirection, as expected of vibranium-related items. Retractable finger claws, because why not? And that was about it. Other functions were not really worth mentioning. They were, at best, tiny details I had added, like enhancing the arm with magic and such. Here it is, I said with a smile, presenting Bucky with his new arm. It looks incredible, Bucky muttered, putting the arm on. It operated just like his old arm. Some of the new functions, though, those needed voice commands until I figured out how to connect the entire interface to his brain. The new functions, some of them, like the blade and the Tarza, they need a voice command, I informed him. Your voice, so don't worry. So, I can't say Tarza or blade, or it will activate? Bucky asked. At this, I shook my head. I still haven't managed to figure out how to connect everything to your brain, so while I find a way to do so, the arm operates on intent thanks to a combination of magic and genius. I see, so if I don't mean blade as in my arm blade, it won't work, Bucky sighed in relief. Yes, as you can see, you are not stabbing yourself right now, I chuckled, pointing to his arm, which effectively was on its normal mode. I feel stupid now, Bucky smiled. Now, go ahead and test it out, I smiled at him. Will do, Bucky grinned, maybe on Alexei, he added with a slight smirk. By all means, kick his ass, I snorted. After leaving Bucky to kick Alexei around like a training bot, I went back home to relax, with the girls at school and with a party later today, and Bucky out of the house. I had the house to myself. Well, time to do nothing before doing some dungeons, I muttered with a yawn when all of a sudden, a violent burst of light engulfed the entire living room with me in it. Party. When the light died down, all that stood in my living room was me in an enraged state, my now scorched living room, and Thor and the Warrior 3. Brother, we came to party in Midgard. Thor greeted as if he hadn't fucked my living room. You burned a hole through my house. I hissed. I know, Thor beamed, with Volstagg and Fandral nodding with a smile, both waving 2 bottles of Asgardian booze at me. I will walk out of here, Horgun muttered, being the only one to realize I was not happy at all. I am sorry for what it's worth, he added, walking out of sight. Now, let us party. Thor grinned. I think he's not happy. Fandral muttered at Volstagg. Do you think it has something to do with the hole in his house? Volstagg asked Fandral as I glared at them. Maybe, but that would be silly, Fandral scoffed. Goose. I called, and soon after Goose appeared, her tail puffed as she hissed at Thor, sick him, girl. Sick higher. It took 2 seconds for Thor to understand his situation. Why does this feline have so many tentacles? He's not happy at all, Fandral muttered. I will follow Horgun's example, Volstagg nodded, but alas, it was too late, I was already behind them. You will leave this house better than it was when you came, or you will pay in blood. I smiled at them. No, bad cat, tentacles don't go there, no. Thor screamed. I could almost swear I heard him say Yamat Kudastup. You lied to me, asking the tentacles to stop doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. They are so slimy, Yamat Kudastup, stop. After forcing Thor, Fandral, Volstagg, and Horgun to clean up my house after they had trashed it with their sudden visit, I took them on a tour of New York, after I explained some basic human customs to them. No breaking things because you like them. No picking fights with humans, especially considering you can slap them to death. No violence in general unless I give the green light. After that crash course in human etiquette, where Thor pouted because according to him I was taking away everything he liked, we went out to party. At the first bar we visited, Thor and Volstagg drank so much that I had to pay with a cashier's check to the bar. After that I took them skiing. Surprisingly, Volstagg proved to be pretty good at it, almost as good as Bucky at skiing, which surprised me because of his physical build. This is awesome. Snow, without frost giants. Thor exclaimed with a grin, throwing his arms in the air. It's beautiful. Volstagg stated, doing a triple-double flip in the air and then landing majestically on the snow. Loki doesn't know what he's missing. Fandral said, trying in vain to ski. In part his poor skills reminded me of me when I first came to these mountains, to be humiliated by Bucky and his majestic show. The party continued, with me taking the 4 Asgardians to the desert to ski there. Of course, Thor, seeing no one around, decided to challenge me to a duel to commemorate the occasion. I accepted. In this duel, unlike the first, Thor offered not to use his weapon, and I, with a desire for vengeance, allowed him to fight without his hammer. To make the story short, I won. There wasn't much to tell. I simply punched the God of Thunder in the nuts with a focused strike, that kicked his ass into a sandstorm that was coming our way, and waited on besides the Warrior 3, with a beer at hand. By the time he came back to his senses after his Asgardian nuts had healed from the nut-cracking blast, he cursed my infallible tactic in a high-pitched tone, which in turn made everyone laugh. I will have my revenge, Thor declared, sounding like Alvin from the Chipmunks. All is fair in war and love, I chuckled. Fair enough, Thor muttered, now give me a red thingy, or I shall tell Sif you said she was a weak warrior. Well, that was a rather specific threat, one that was somewhat effective. Fine, for what it's worth, I apologize for the nut punch, I smiled, handing him an HP potion. Drinking the pot like it was the best thing in the world, Thor sighed, and with an evil smirk said, I forgive you. It was here when I realized, his hand was extended, meaning he was calling his hammer, fuck. Revenge. And with a battle cry, he blasted me into the sandstorm, with an electrifying nut-destroying attack. Fuck you. I cried as the storm pulled me in. Feel my pain. Feel their pain. Thor shouted back. 10 minutes later, and a few potions to make sure everything was fine down there, Thor and I made a blood agreement to never attack each other's nuts, and so the Nut Treaty of Peace came into existence. Volstagg POV. After the treaty was signed, Thor and Alex left to fight, this time avoiding their private parts, as it was stated in the treaty. So that was something, Horgun muttered. I am glad they didn't target us. One attack down there from either one of them is enough to turn us into Valkyries, Fandral muttered back in terror. So now what? I asked the guys. We fight each other, Fandral suggested. Sounds like a good way to burn some time, Horgun nodded, but before we could start, Thor and Alex landed in front of us, both covered in blood and bruises, Alex more than Thor's. However, unlike Thor's, Alex's injuries were healing rapidly. Thor and I were discussing. Alex began with a smile. And we thought, Thor nodded. That you guys needed some training, Alex grinned, cracking his knuckles. So, do you want the first punch, my brother? Thor asked Alex with a small bow, while we all started to sweat. They wanted to fight us. That was not fair. One of them against us was overkill, but two. I am not drunk enough for this. I couldn't possibly do that. You must take the first punch or hammer strike. Alex bowed in kind with a terrifying smile. No, no, I insist, you go first. Punch Fandral, he has a punchable face, or so says Sif. Thor smiled. Let's run before they decide who gets to kick our ass first. Fandral hissed, darting out of sight. I will stay. Horgun sighed with a defeated look, as Thor and Alex continued to fight over who would kick our asses first. But Horgun. Such sacrifice, why? Delaying the inevitable is a foolish endeavor. I shall accept my destiny, for that is the way of the warrior, Horgun stated, grabbing his weapons. He was an honorable warrior, but a stupid one, which is why I ran after Fandral. Catching up to Fandral took me roughly a few minutes, for he was hiding in a cave. I am safe here, this is my new life, Fandral repeated over and over again. When all of the sudden, a flying projectile entered the cave. The projectile was no other than Horgun. I made a terrible mistake, I am now reconsidering the way of the warrior. Horgun muttered in a weak voice before he passed out. Ah! Fandral screamed like a girl, pointing behind me. What in? Ah! I joined in his screams. Here's is Thor. Thor greeted us with a smile. Alex said that was a human funny reference, so how was it? Funny. I answered with uncertainty. It was hilarious, Thor. I heard Alex chuckle as he came into view. Well, I am a god, meaning I excel at everything, Thor nodded with a proud smile, as Fandral tried to dig his way out of the cave. So, it's my turn, right? Alex asked, cracking his neck. Indeed, Thor nodded. Please not the face, everything but the face. Fandral shouted, and so, our party in Midgard turned into a training session with two overpowered maniacs. In the end, Horgun was right, we ran for nothing. Teeth shaker POV. Ulysses Klaus had been captured, and the vibranium he had stolen, had ironically been stolen. Shield's files say they were the ones that captured Ulysses, and by the time they had arrived, all of our vibranium was gone. But I knew that was a lie. The new director was selling me. Shield didn't have the resources or power to capture Ulysses, meaning one thing, and one thing only. They were covering for someone else. Unfortunately for us, we had no ground to start our search, at least at the beginning. But with time we found who we were looking for, Alex Walker. At first, he simply became a person of interest. But soon, we started to connect the dots, until eventually, he turned into our main suspect. Sources say he was with Ulysses before his capture, meaning he had access to what was stolen from us in the first place. An outsider, with our precious metal, a sin that I could not forgive. For now, though, we had no proofs, but soon we would have, and once we had, he would pay in blood. My king, the head of this investigation, said, getting my attention. Yes? I asked, awaiting for the proof our people desperately needed. The subject was last seen with 4 other men going into a bar. After that, he disappeared out of sight. But the readings we got on him confirm our suspicions, my king. He has been working with vibranium, so it has been settled. He was our new target, the one using what was not his to use. Thanks for this confirmation. He would die, for only in death he would pay for what he has done. What do we do now? A soldier asked. We hunt. In reality, I really didn't want to kill him. He was a father, just like me, but he had wronged Wakanda by taking what was not his, and here that was paid with blood. Alex POV. 3 days after our party, the Warrior 3 left, leaving Thor on Earth, who wanted to stay for a bit, to bond with his adopted nieces, Natasha and Emily, as according to him, a blood brother was like any other brother, meaning he was their mighty uncle. Yes, yes, little one, I am indeed stronger than your father, Thor laughed in a cocky manner. Daddy is the strongest. Emily shot back with a glare. She's adorable. Thor ignored her glare, ruffling her hair. So, can you tell me again, how did you befriend a Nordic god who seems to have room temperature IQ? Bucky asked with one of his looks, the one that said, I am done with this shit. I teleported into his world, I replied. I see. Bucky nodded. He's the oldest in this room, and behaves like a teenager. He added with a sigh. He will get better, I chuckled. Hi there, second mightiest Uncle Thor greeted Bucky, who seemed to be on the verge of punching the Norse god. I heard from Alex you are a warrior of great power. I am, Bucky replied, glaring at Thor. Don't worry Bucks, we love you more. Nat winked at him, as she jumped onto the couch to watch TV, making Bucky smile. For now. Thor grinned, I shall win this uncle battle, in the uncle arena, or die trying. So. I prepare the funeral then? Bucky asked with a smile that made me smile. He was certainly confident the girls would pick him, always, which was true. I like that spirit, human. Thor replied, as always oblivious to Bucky's sass. So you guys want? I stopped mid-sentence when I saw a few red dots appear on the map. They were nearing my house and would arrive in a few minutes by what I could tell. Girl, time to visit the Ancient One. I spoke with a tone that left no room for argument. On it Emily nodded, opening a portal for her and Nat to use. Kick their asses, Nat said, as she jumped into the portal, with Emily following close behind. How many? Bucky asked. Around 20 so far, I answered, counting the red dots on the map. Enemies? Thor asked with an excited grin. I knew there was a reason for me to stay here, to battle beside you, brother. You don't have to fight with us if you don't want to, Bucky smirked. Nonsense, Thor declared, I will paint the walls I rebuilt in your house with their blood. He added with a bloodthirsty grin. A bit overkill, but okay. I chuckled, my eyes on the minimap, 28 red dots, all approaching. Any idea who's coming? Bucky asked, pulling a shotgun from behind the fridge. Let me check, I replied as I used sight to see who was coming. Emshah Karakiti LV-30, Wakandian Special Force. Wakanda was coming for me, which meant, they somehow figured out I stole what Ulysses had stolen. Well, ain't that kick in the ass? I guess what goes around comes around. Wakanda, I sighed. The vibranium? Bucky asked and I nodded. Well, let's open some political talks then, Bucky replied with a grin, cocking his shotgun with a single hand, as he pulled an assault rifle under Goose's litter box. You have weapons everywhere? I asked with a chuckle. Yes, Bucky nodded, I have 40 guns in your room alone, which is the room with fewer weapons in the house. Well, that was not something I expected, or I did, but not on this scale. Humans and their puny weapons, Thor chuckled, all one needs to break some spines, and crush some skulls is this. He showed his hammer with pride, with this, you can actually feel their life fading away. I think you like fighting a bit too much, I rolled my eyes. So, how much time do we have? Bucky asked. Enough to relocate the fight out of my house. God knows I am tired of shit breaking around, I replied, signaling the two to follow me. Huzzah! Thor grinned, following me without a question. Sure, but it's not like you can't buy 1,000 houses like this one, Bucky chuckled. Yes, I know, but not because I can, I will do it, I shot back with a chuckle of my own. I relocated the upcoming battle to an abandoned warehouse I had just bought right around the corner as the Wakandian forces arrived. As expected, they followed us like ants to a picnic, and now all that was left to do was wait. Don't kill them, I told Thor and Bucky, who both glanced at me in a confused manner. They are hunting you, and you want to let them live? Bucky asked, his eyes glancing around the abandoned building. Is that wise? No, it's not wise, but I don't want Wakanda to hunt me down, for all of eternity, I replied, watching the red dots approach closer and closer as our conversation continued. If I kill them, it would eventually lead to me having to destroy their country, and that is something I don't want to do. Such a merciful outlook, I do not share it, but I will respect it. Thor smiled, his eyes beaming with sheer excitement. No lethal force then, Bucky sighed, his eyes weary. They're here, I announced, the red dots finally surrounding us. I am ready, Thor exclaimed, grinning. Alex Walker, I heard someone say in an enraged tone. That someone was no other than the current king of Wakanda, T'Chaka the Black Panther. T'Chaka the Black Panther, LV 110. Hello, I greeted, turning around to face the man. The king was wearing his panther suit, that covered him from head to toe. This is not how I wanted to meet with you. You stole what was ours, T'Chaka barked, baring his claws at me. You chose this path. I looked at the panther, and then at my companions who were waiting for my command, a surprising sight considering Thor was here. I stole from Ulysses. I admitted, there was no point in denying it. Then let us end this, pay for your crimes to Wakanda, and this will be over. He wanted me to accept his punishment, he wanted me to accept death. How foolish of him. No, I shook my head, giving the signal to Thor and Bucky to take care of the others around the building, for the king was mine to defeat. I gave you an easy way out, now you will face death like a warrior, the king growled. I won't say that what I did was not morally wrong, I replied, but I have things to do, enemies to face, and daughters to raise. If death is the only way I can repay Wakanda, then I will never pay for my crimes, leaving me with no other choice but to commit even more crimes against your nation. Alex Walker, a father of two, as a father I can sympathize with you, but as a king, I have killed for less. The panther replied, today, one of us dies. I chuckled, looking at the panther as he approached me. No one will die today, of that, I will make sure. We'll see, the panther roared, leaping towards me. I won, I declared, stopping the king mid-flight with my telekinesis. Telekinesis, the skill that allowed me to levitate without resistance many things, and enemies if they were at least 40 levels beneath me, which was the case with the panther. With beings like Bucky and Magneto, my telekinesis sucks my mana dry considerably fast, with Magneto more than with Bucky, but with T'Chaka, it was like levitating a baby. I could do it for hours without much strain. You dare? The panther hissed, trashing his body around in the pseudo-zero-gravity field I had created around him with telekinesis. Don't waste your energy, I advised the king. Killing me won't change a thing. Our people won't stop until you pay for your crimes, the panther replied, in a tone that said he was accepting defeat. I won't kill you, I sighed, looking at the king with tired eyes. I only wanna talk, man to man. Is that too much to ask? I don't have much of a choice, right? The panther sighed. No, you don't, I smiled at his response. So, go on, speak, the panther commanded. I know I technically stole from you guys, but I did it for a good cause, though I am not gonna lie, I also did it for me. It's a complicated situation. I started as one Wakandian soldier shot at me, surprisingly the bullet bounced in my back. Release the king. The soldier was oblivious to what had happened, however. Bucky, you missed one. I shouted for Bucky to hear, however. It was Thor who answered the call by throwing his hammer from the first floor, knocking the Wakandian soldier behind me. Huzzah! I am winning this game. Where was I? I muttered. You were saying you stole from us for two reasons. You wanted our metal, and you wanted to help us, which I find far-fetched, but do go on, the panther replied, floating. There are threats out of this world, that not even all the vibranium in your country would defeat. I sighed. You think yourselves to be the strongest, and you would be right, for there is no strongest country in the world than Wakanda, but, out there, I pointed at the sky, you and your vibranium are nothing, out there you are nothing but bugs with a serious ego. Aliens, you stole our vibranium because of aliens. The panther said in a tone that said, I don't believe you. The blonde guy that knocked your soldier there, I pointed at the soldier on the ground, he's from Asgard, and guess what, he's older than fucking America. You expect me to believe such things without proof? The panther hissed, and I laughed. No, but I can show you some proof if you are willing to try and open your mind, I offered, extending my hand. After all, you can't pass this chance, can't you? I smiled at him. As a man, you don't want to believe me, but as a king, you can't leave such claims out in the air, for if what I say is true, your precious kingdom needs more than it already has, right? The panther glared at me, or at least I assumed he glared at me. His mask made it hard to get a read on the guy. Very well, let us call for peace, for now. If what you say is true, I have much to think on. And so, the panther took my hand, which was something. The Ancient One POV. I watched as Alex showed the panther the dangers beyond the veil of human ignorance, and how little by little the panther began to reconsider his position with a bit of magic suggestion. After all, what could Wakanda do in a universe as big as ours? However, as much as the magically manipulated king wanted to end this ordeal, he knew his people would never allow a foreigner to get away with what Alex had done. In their eyes, Alex had insulted them, perhaps as much as Klaus himself. Do you think the panther will reconsider? Odin asked, looking at Alex and T-Shaker through the eyes of one of his many ravens on Earth. He will, I nodded, though sacrifices on his part would have to be made. Humans and their internal conflicts, Odin sighed, rubbing his temples. That is the consequence of a short life, I chuckled. When I was their age, I was like them, angry, naive, looking for a fight when there was no need for one. However, as the centuries passed, I learned the truths of the universe, curing me of my own ignorance. Normal humans lack that privilege. They lack the time to learn and improve themselves, and because of that they stay for the most part ignorant, blind to the truth. I think there is more to it than time on that, Odin replied. Thor is older than you, and yet he behaves like a child. I think it's a combination of the willingness to learn and the time to do it. He was right, time alone was not enough, you needed to actually want to change, otherwise, time would only prolong the time of your ignorance. You are right, I stand corrected, time alone is not enough for us, we need more, maybe a catalyst to force us to learn, I nodded with a thin smile. T-Shaker POV. Alex Walker, our target for capture and execution, had bested us, and what was worst, he had shown me so much. His powers allowed me to see beyond what I thought possible. I knew it could be a lie, I knew such things could possibly be manipulated by his hand, but a part of me knew that was not the case. Even if it was a possibility, my instincts were telling me he was being honest. My instincts had yet to fail me, and that scared me. If what he said was true, Wakanda was in danger, and we were not prepared to face it, at least not alone. But making an alliance with him was easier said than done. My people wanted his blood, it was well known he had stolen what was ours. That fact remained, for no matter the cause behind his theft, he had still stolen from us. In the end, I had but two options, one to let my people hunt him and die on the process. Or two, lying to make this work. One path would kill my people, and the other my principles. I guess the real question was, what was more important? My people, or my personal beliefs? What will we do, husband? Ramandar asked, her tone soft, bringing me out of my head. It was astonishing really, how every time I looked at her, I would fall in love all over again. Her eyes, her soft skin, her touch. We will get who we first wanted, I replied, making my decision. Between my beliefs and my people, I would always choose my people, my children, my wife. If allying myself with Alex would bring more strength to Wakanda, then perhaps it was time to make an exception. In a way, I wasn't lying. I always said I would keep Wakanda close to the world. But Alex was technically Asgardian according to the Norse god of thunder, so in a way, I was opening Wakanda to another world, not the one I swore to keep away. But what will the council say? Ramandar inquired in a worried tone. It pained me to hear her voice like that, my queen worrying for me. She was to be happy, I promised her that, and yet here I am failing. I will lie, I sighed. Vibranium is not originally from Earth. I will simply say he got his vibranium from outer space. After all, Alex has means of transport to travel the stars. It is not a bad lie. My beautiful wife sighed. It could work. The elders would still complain, but with this, they would have no base to demand his head. I snorted. I would like to see them try, I chuckled. He is not a man that we can currently defeat, not without revealing ourselves to the world, defeated in less than 10 seconds, a shame I would carry to my grave. Thor Odinson POV. I was awesome, I knew that. I mean, my hair, my muscles, everything was beyond awesome, it was mighty. And so was my brother from another mother, Alex, of course. He was at least 60% less awesome and mighty, but even with that, he was still mighty on his own accord, Earth's mightiest warrior. So, when the time to help him in battle came, I was ready to summon Asgard's army to assist him in combat. Unfortunately, the opportunity never came, a sad development really. When Alex told me a country was after him, I was ready to bathe on their blood as the Asgardian troops sung about our greatness. Alas, I didn't get the chance to bathe in anyone's blood, which was a sad development. I wanted to show this metal-armed human I was the mightiest uncle. I was taller, stronger, handsomer, and stronger. Did I say taller? Oh well, Alex knew that, and so did the girls. The only one in denial was Rocky, or was it Trucky, Locky? Sucky. Oh, I like that one, Sucky. Thor, do you want a burger? Alex asked. Yes. I ran towards the kitchen in my mighty Asgardian pajamas. On it. Alex shot back. Showing the panther the possible threats outside this world was not enough to convince him. I knew that, so I had to force him into the path I desired, without him knowing, a tactic I was not proud of, but what other choice did I have? I didn't want to wage war with Wakanda. I had no time to deal with such a thing. Their country was powerful and an ally the Earth needed, so eliminating them was not an option. Angry with how things had turned out, I picked the path of cowards and used what little I learned from the Ancient One to change his mind by altering his own thoughts. I didn't brainwash him though. I didn't have the necessary skill to alter his mind to such a degree. After all, I abhorred this particular tree of magic with all my heart, and had only learned how to use the bare basics out of necessity, for according to the Ancient One, such knowledge was essential to avoid said magic taking a hold of you. I felt dirty, angry, and disgusted. To get what I had wanted, I had changed his views about the entire situation, and no matter how much I told myself it had been for the greater good, that I had just changed his thoughts a bit, that I had only guided him to a path of acceptance for the Sake of the future. I knew it was wrong. In the end, it changed nothing, no matter how many excuses I tried to come up with. I had done the thing I myself had feared someone would to me. I had become the voice whispering in the back of someone's ear, manipulating them for my own sake. It's laughable really, in a morally disgusting way. My act had saved lives, and even then I felt no better. But I had no time to sulk. I was a fierce believer of the karmic cycle. What goes around, comes around, and one day, I would pay for this. I would pay for breaking my own code. It's stupid, I know. I had done worse things. I had killed innocent people, and yet I drew the line with such a thing. You did what you had to do, Bucky muttered, being the only one to know what had truly happened. I know that. I still don't feel any better though, I chuckled without emotion. You are not like them, Bucky growled, slamming his fist into a wall, shattering the entire piece into nothing but rubble. You are not Hydra, you simply made him see without his prejudices. Bucky, I know what you are trying to do, I smiled, closing my eyes as I did so, but, what I did, is no better than getting a girl drunk to fuck her. Just because drunk she would be more likely to open her legs, I sighed. I whispered into his ear, I guided him towards the path I wanted, and yes, this path is for the best, but he had a choice to say fuck it all, a choice I didn't give him. I still don't care, Bucky replied, his eyes piercing my very soul. I know that what you did was wrong, but it was wrong for good reasons. The ends justify the means. I chuckled, again without any emotion behind. Don't worry, Bucky, I might feel bad, but it changes nothing in the end, I smiled. I would have done the same thing, without hesitation. I have too much in play to risk it all in a war with Wakanda, and besides, I get some consolation this path was better than the alternative. Alternative? Bucky asked. Had I left the king's decision to him, there was a chance he would have waged war on me, I replied. Had that happened, I would have had no choice but to destroy him and his people. This way, I only hurt one person. I think one compared to a few million it's better, don't you think? Sometimes life only gives us hard choices, and the only thing we can do is pick the less fucked one between the two, Bucky replied, approaching me with a smile. Now, don't brood, that's my style, he muttered with a chuckle, and before I could reply, he surprised me with a hug. You are not alone. You are surprisingly good at this, I chuckled. Bucky the therapist, how bizarre was that? Now let's drink a beer and talk about sports of something, Bucky chuckled, breaking the hug. We have to balance this shit out. I laughed. For the first time since I did what I did, I actually laughed. For future references, you have to say no homo after such a moving moment. Duly noted, Bucky snorted. Thanks, I needed to have this talk, I sighed. I might not totally accept what I did as the correct option, but somehow I felt better. Open the door, Fury is about to knock, I told Bucky as I saw my minimap, seeing Fury a few meters away from the door. I got a text from Bucky saying, someone besides him was depressed, Fury said as he walked into the room. That would be me, I chuckled. Bitch, I will slap the depression out of you, Fury barked. Not sure that is the medically correct procedure with situations like this, I snorted. I will make it the correct procedure, Fury rolled his eye. You did what you had to do, end of the story. After all, when life gives you motherfucking lemons, you fuck life, and ask her for an ice cold lemonade and a sandwich to go with it. So stop sulking, we only have enough room for one emo, and that one is Cyborg over there, he pointed at Bucky. Don't worry, Bucky pulled a My Little Pony move on me, I chuckled. Did he say no homo? Fury asked, and Bucky rolled his eyes. Perhaps, I would be okay, with friends like this. There was little time to hate myself for doing what was right, even if it was wrong. After magically manipulating the King of Wakanda for the sake of what I considered was best for the world in the great scheme of things, I was left alone to think. But when that usually turned into a self-doubt session of me questioning myself for what I had done, so I started to change my focus, burning all my alone time doing dungeons. You see, The problem was when I was alone, when I had nothing but time to think. No matter how much I tried, my mind would go there. Perhaps it was because it was recent, and it would remain at the top of my mind for a bit because of that, but I hate it. So, the only way to erase such a difficult situation was by occupying myself. Yes, I know it was at best a temporary solution, but for now, it would do. Besides, doing dungeons was proving a good emotional excuse to avoid facing my feelings. I mean, most people drink to avoid dealing with their emotions and their mistakes, but me. I do dungeons, I level up while neglecting the voice in my head that makes me feel bad. Again, I know this is by no means a healthy path, but I just wanted peace, at least for a bit. Level up. I grinned at the notification that brought me out of my long reverie. I was finally in the 170s, which was amazing. At this pace I would surpass Thor's level before the events of Iron Man begin, reaching the 300s with ease. Well, that was if I continued doing 4 to 6 dungeons a day. But the question was, would that be enough to face Thanos? I had no idea how strong the Mad Titan was, which made my entire mission to stop his possible snap all the more impossible. Perhaps soon it would be time to travel the cosmos on the quest of gathering information. New quest created, the secrets of the cosmos. And the predators that lurk within. Description: you alone know what is to come, but what can you do about it? How can a man prepare if he doesn't know how strong his enemy is? Well, the answer is simple. To prepare you must reach the skies, and find what you can about the threats that will hold the universe to its knees. Objective: investigate in the ever-expanding universe about the predators that lurk in the cosmos. Some of them are free, others are imprisoned, but all are very much alive and waiting for the time to strike. Investigate about Hela 0/100%. Investigate about Thanos 0/100%. Investigate about Null 0/100%. Investigate about Kang 0/100%. Investigate about Mephisto 0/100%. Investigate about Galactus 0/100%. Failure, death, the gate, enslavement of both body and soul. This quest has a 10-year timer. Rewards: Null, Kang, Mephisto, Galactus, Hela, so Thanos is literally the least of my concerns. I almost wish I didn't get this quest, I sighed, looking at the quest. Heck, it even had a timer. That's new. The failure consequences are weird though. What is the gate supposed to mean? I will get killed or turn into one. Unknown POV. In his pocket dimension, Alex trained day and night, to avoid the voices of his consciousness eating him away. Mortals rarely learn it, no matter how long it takes. Their choice is good or bad, always come back to them. But I suppose, this was the only way, for what was to come would forge the man he was destined to become. After all, he had no choice, he had been chosen. Emily Walker POV. Daddy was sad, I had no idea why, but he was sad. I knew that I could tell, how he would smile just to pretend, how his laughs would feel somewhat empty, so I had to take matters into my own hands. I would not allow Daddy to be sad, I refused that. So, what are we doing again? Nat asked with a sigh, rubbing her eyes in a tired fashion. We are going to bake, I declared with a smile. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, Nat replied with a yawn. Nat, do you want me to show you the graphs again? I said, threatening to show her my 201-page-long graph presentation with detailed information about Daddy's emotional state. No, but if you hadn't shown me the presentation, we would have been here 4 hours ago. Nat rolled her eyes. Fine, let's bake cakes, she smiled. We will bake a cake for each letter of his name. 10 cakes, to show our love. Can we use your magic? Nat asked, and I gasped, how could she ask that? I mean, yes I could, but where would be the love in that? I will not even justify that with a response. I huffed. Fine, 10 cakes the old-fashioned way, Nat chuckled. Good, now let's start. I declared, ready to enter the next phase of my plan, learning how to make cakes. I mean, I knew how to make cookies, how hard could it be? 3 hours later. Why is that cake on flames? We haven't even baked it. Nat shouted as she ran towards the flaming cake with the fire extinguisher. I don't know. I cried as I was painfully forced to slay one of my cakes that had become sentient because of a magical surge that came from me when things started to go south. Alex Walker POV. I was happily sleeping in my bed, when all of the sudden, a flaming cake came running into my room, followed by Nat with a fire extinguisher. A single thought came to me, as I saw Nat kill the living cake. What in the actual fuck? Sorry, Dad, problems with, okay, I don't have a lie prepared for this, so I will go ahead and walk away and hope you think this is a dream. With that said, Nat left back to the kitchen, where I could hear Emily screaming. What in the actual fuck? I muttered. They wanted to bake you some cakes, Bucky answered as he came into my room. Don't worry, I've been keeping an eye on them. I chuckled, so, how come a cake came running into my room? Are my daughters playing God out there? Magic and baking powder apparently don't mix, Bucky shrugged his shoulders. Die you unholy tiramisu die. That was Nat. I made you. And I can unmake you. That was Emily. Ha, should I be worried they sound bloodthirsty? I hummed. Is there such a thing as a woman without a bloodthirsty side? Bucky snorted. Tush, I nodded, going back to sleep. Tomorrow I would call someone to repair whatever they broke, for now, I would sleep. Christmas was right around the corner, making this the first official Christmas with Natasha in my life. The preparations for the celebrations were under Fury, who had offered to organize the entire thing. As for me, same as always, grinding some EXP. My plan was to leave Earth after New Year's Eve. I wanted to finish the quest I had obtained a few weeks ago as soon as possible. So, I had set the date to start the quest after New Year's Eve, leaving the girls with Bucky. The quest in question was an eluding manor. Where to start? Where to begin? The quest in questions was hard, for in it there were beings I had to investigate that I had no idea about. Yes, I had read about Null and Kang, but very little. My knowledge about them was very lacking in substance, meaning finding information about them was a matter I had no idea how to tackle with. Perhaps the Ancient One would know where to begin. You seem distressed. That voice, the Ancient One, God, I hate it when she does that. I should put a bell on her. Can you for once use the door? I asked with a sigh, as I turned around to face her. Where's is the fun in that? The Ancient One smiled a mischievous smile. I hate you sometimes, I sighed again, rolling my eyes at her. Ignoring my annoyance, the Ancient One approached, taking a seat in front of me with a chair she made out of magic. So, what has you distressed, my friend? What do you know about Null? I asked. It was worth the shot. You are treading in dangerous waters. The Ancient's one tone got suddenly dark and borderline scary. For the first time since I had met her, she sounded angry, and maybe scared. If you don't want to answer, I can understand, I replied after I recovered from my initial shock. The Ancient One stared at me, her eyes showing a turmoil of emotions when suddenly she said, I don't know much about Null, Odin would know more. but what I know is that he is something you don't want to mess with. He is the end of things, and the bringer of darkness, a being with no remorse, only hate. I see, I nodded. You already knew that, the Ancient One muttered. I looked at her, seeing her surprised expression set in. You truly are an anomaly, the Ancient One sighed with a faint smile. You know things beyond your years. I wonder, just who truly are you, Mr. Walker? I eyed her and chuckled. A man trying not to die, I offered. Ha ha, I suppose that is true, the Ancient One giggled at my response. Tell me something, is this new interest of yours a danger to our existence? No, I shook my head. I just know that there are threats out there that we need to prepare. I suppose we are more similar than I originally thought, the Ancient One smiled, handing me a book she apparated from out of nowhere. Learn the spells this book holds. Once you have mastered this book, and its contents, come back to me. You will then find the answers you seek, for you will venture where even I haven't dared to. I eyed the book, Book of Cagliostro, then I turned my attention back to the Ancient One. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Walker, for this path you are taking could very well kill you, and then you would curse me for helping you. With that said, she teleported out of the room, leaving me with the Book of Cagliostro. Odin Borson POV. I eyed Yao as she teleported back into her office, where I was waiting for her. You sure want to do that? Yao turned and chuckled. He will find his answers one way or another, why not help him? I chuckled. I suppose that is one way to tackle a situation, but for you to give that stone, I never thought I'd see the day. Yao smiled. I'm not giving him the stone, I'm just lending him the stone for a bit. I know, I sighed, but time projection. Are you sure he could die? I know, and when he finishes that book I gave him, he will know too, Yao sighed, taking a seat. The only way for him to find his answers without destroying himself is this. And who will protect him while he does that? You know as well as I do, he will defenseless while he does that, I added. He will meet a few interesting individuals, so don't worry, Yao answered as cryptic as always. The Ancient One POV. Time projection. The power of sending one's consciousness back in time. It's like dreaming, but you're aware of what is happening. However, unlike most dreams, you are not in your body, in fact, possess the body of someone connected to you in the past. While on this state, you can change things, but the absolute points in time remain the same. If the person you possessed was supposed to kill someone, and you refuse, that person would still die by your hands, with the body going back to autopilot. Meaning what you could change was very little, and with how time works, non-important, as it would eventually be washed away. This mystic art is dangerous, for if you die in the past, you die for real. Even if the events of the past continue as they were meant to be, your death will remain. That is the one fact time projection can change. With this power, Alex would find the answers he wanted, and perhaps he would also understand his origins. I could only hope. I wonder how will he react when he finds out. He has familiar ties in this universe he once called foreign. I could only wait for his reaction. I hope you are ready to unveil the mystery of your own existence, Mr. Walker. I smiled, for things were about to get mildly interesting. After the Ancient One left, I opened the book she had given me with curiosity. After all, why would the Book of Cagliostro answer all of my questions? Page by page, I started to understand what she had meant by the book would answer all of my questions. The book spoke of theories, spells never fully finished that would in theory allow me to witness the pass itself. But the spells themselves needed two things, a magical catalyst and a theoretical point to cast the spell. The theoretical point was nothing more than a location connected to the event you wished to witness, according to the book. The magical catalyst, well, apparently you had but one of two options: reaching a level of mana never seen before, or have something connected to the flow of time itself. In this case, the time stone. But why would the Ancient One give me the book if she will never allow me to get the stone? Unless she intends to make an exception. Shaking my head, I continued to read the book, with the 10 following pages elaborating in depth about the dangers these spells had. Apparently, this was not time travel purse, it was more like my dungeons, meaning the time stone alongside the spells would create a pocket dimension to live out the point in time you wanted to see, leaving your physical body in a meditative state, while your astral form would take hold of an NPC that belonged to the story, one that alongside the pocket dimension had been created for the sole purpose of filling every little box. It basically operated like my dungeons, but with more narrative and such. Also, unlike my dungeons, here I would not be me, I would simply be commanding an NPC, and here laid the danger of this. If I died there, I would die for real. My powers would be limited to what the story wanted me to have, meaning if the NPC had the power of a human, I would be fucked. Now, this would be okay, if like my dungeons I had the option to escape, but that was not the case. With this time-dimensional adventure, I had no other choice but to live the movie, from start to finish, and survive. The question now was, would the Ancient One really give me the stone for this, and more importantly, would I really risk it? I guess that when it came to dangers, doing this or going on my way to space to find out would be equally dangerous. Most of the targets I had to investigate were quite above my league, and more than not asking questions about such things leads to confrontations with the groups that follow said names. Perhaps I was rushing into this, perhaps it would be best to wait. I did after all had time to prepare, to get stronger, time I could use to better myself before looking into the abyss. Okay, I sighed, closing the book. The idea of being an NPC whose power was bound to the events of that time, and the role he played was not to my liking at all. With my luck, I would get connected to someone weaker, a mere guy that had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. How's the book? Bucky asked as he came into my office on the second floor of my house. It was a new addition to my house. Since Thor fucked the ceiling, I decided to redecorate and rebuild some parts of the house, like the second floor, that now had an office. It's... I paused, enlightening. I chuckled. That bad? Bucky snorted. Well, in theory, the book and the stone could give me the answers I am looking for, and fast, but the dangers are as high as the rewards, I replied, eyeing the book. I think I first need to prepare more, so to speak. I know nothing about magic, but more than not sounds like a double-edged sword. Bucky smiled, taking a seat. It is when you enter the realm of universal manipulation, like time travel, or such. Other than that, magic is quite useful and has almost no drawbacks. I nodded. He had a point, but magic wasn't that bad when you played under the rules of the universe. Want my advice? Bucky asked, tossing me a beer I had just now noticed he had on his hand. Sure, I nodded. Find the answers you are looking for by your own means, follow your gut. If you feel something will go wrong on this path, it means something will go wrong, Bucky replied, taking a sip of his beer. Sometimes it's best to stick to our guns. He had a point. Risking my life for answers that could kill me if I made a mistake was not the way to go. For now, I would wait. Resolving not to take on the magical path for answers, I started to formulate another plan, one with more chances of success. Plan 1 had been traveling around the cosmos, looking for answers, which in hindsight was stupid. The universe was very big, and it would take me a long time to traverse it. Plan 2 had been using magic to get my answers. This plan, while faster, was immensely more dangerous. So, with that said, Plan 3 had come to life, which was basically Plan 1, but on steroids. For the time being, I would focus on leveling up, my goal. Being able to use the space tone freely, with it, I would assume the universe would open to me, I would know where every planet is, every star, for all, in reality, exists within space. I mean, this idea was more sound than the others. All I had to do was get 49 levels, and I would be able to use the space stone. It certainly had fewer risks than the other two plans. Time to grind, like a fucking no-life, I said, cracking my neck. With my new plan in motion, I started to do more dungeons than ever before. Heck, it had gotten to the point where I was doing it in a mathematically time-efficient way. Was it fun? No. God no, it was boring, like playing WoW Classic as a warrior in early levels. It was exhausting, mind-numbing at times. Farming the same mobs, over and over and over again was exhausting, but I wasn't doing this to have fun, I was doing this to become stronger. But, if I continued like I was doing, I would reach level 220, by the start of the year 1997. At least according to my calculations. Meaning, this boring, extremely boring path would only take a year. I mean, it was currently December 1995. That was if the speed I was farming dungeons didn't slow down, by some unforeseen problems. This is boring, I yawned. My strategy was making one of the dungeons close to Canada, that had the most mobs. I would run around the dungeon, get their aggro, and create several pillars of fire while stopping their advance with a new skill of mine, Primal Shout. Primal Shout only worked with soulless creatures, like the ones in the dungeon, slowing them down by a 200%, which was just slow enough to keep them under the pillars of fire until their demise. Doing this for a day would give me around 14.5% of my EXP bar. Meaning, I would get one level a week or so. For a month, which would roughly help my ass up to level 220, by next year. Okay, time to repeat the dungeon. Again I sighed. This dungeon was a few levels below me, but it was the most efficient to farm. Dungeons of my level would take hours to complete, tiring me out, and at most I could do a few, but with this boring farming method, I was doing the same dungeon 14 times a day or more. By the end of the day, after another long journey of grinding, I knew I had to find a new way to level up, otherwise, I would end up hating dungeons by the end of the year. This way, while efficient, was like grinding a knife into my skull. In an ideal scenario, I would have someone doing the dungeons for me, while I get EXP, but I wasn't sure if I could do that. Maybe creating golems of some sort. The gamer my powers were based on had them, but he also had a territory. I wonder, can I make a territory? That was something worth investigating. I think if I remember correctly, he created his territory after forming an alliance with a guild, meaning by the system itself he had been recognized as a guild or group, giving him RTS privileges. But unlike the gamer, there were no guilds in this world, unless the Order of the Crane Mother counted. Wait, I'm an idiot. The Ancient One runs a guild basically, she's the boss of the Masters of the Mystic Arts. If I sign an alliance with her, perhaps the system will unlock that part as Jahan did. I mean, it was a stretch, but it was worth the shot. I had nothing to lose, and a lot to gain. The Ancient One POV. I was teaching Emily how to tap into the mana that surrounded her. The girl had a bright future ahead of her, such power, such innocence, such love. It was funny really. Had Strange not been around, I would have picked her to be my successor, but alas, the greatest of us was always destined to be Strange. Also, Emily's destiny went beyond these walls. I think I got it. Emily smiled, showing me her remarkable progress. Unlike her father, her soul vibrated with the mystic arts, making her a one-of-a-kind prodigy. She would absorb my lessons like no other. It was a teacher's dream. Good, I smiled, patting Emily on the head, as she tackled me into a hug. Now, go to your room, and read about illusions and transmutations. I'll test you tomorrow, I winked. Another. Emily nodded with determination, running towards her room in my temple. 3, 2, 1, I chuckled, and turned around to see Alex coming out of a portal. Mr. Walker, have you come to talk about the book I gave you? Yeah, not interested in that, Alex replied, giving me the book. How strange, I had not foreseen this, at all. I actually wanted to check something. Which would be? I asked. For the first time in a long time, I had no idea where a conversation was going. It was exhilarating, and yet, terrifying. I want to make an alliance with your guild, Alex replied, giving me a mountain of paperwork. An alliance? I tilted my head to the side in confusion. But, we already are allies. Mr. Walker, was he perhaps sick? Are you okay? I said, approaching him to inspect his body with magic. Yes, I am, he chuckled, though I still scanned his body, just to be sure, and to my surprise, he was okay as he had said. I just want the Masters of the Mystic Arts to recognize me as a guild, like yours. Right now you recognize me as an individual, but I want to be also recognized as an organization. Okay, I'll be honest, Mr. Walker, I have no idea what is going on, I replied. This was not at all what I was expecting today. I know, it sounds like I am having a mental breakdown, he smiled, then hummed deep in thought. I might be suffering one, not sure, but the point is, I need you to sign those papers, to test a theory out. Worst case scenario, I wasted 10 minutes of your life. I looked at the pile of papers and sighed. I suppose I could, but do be a dear and go make me a tea. If I am to sign all those papers to make the Masters of the Mystic Arts recognize you as a guild, I might as well get something out of it. Of all the things you could have possibly asked, you asked for a tea, he deadpanned. Well, I like tea, I shrugged. The moment the Ancient One signed the papers I had given her, a few notifications came into view, making my day. You have formed a formal alliance with the Masters of the Mystic Arts. Members of the Masters of the Mystic Arts are now shown on your minimap at all times. By forming a formal alliance with a guild, the gamer has been recognized as an independent faction. Territory management mode is now available. For a few seconds, I was speechless. It had actually worked. So, did it work? The Ancient One asked, taking a sip of the tea I had prepared for her as payment for signing the alliance papers. Was that supposed to do something? She muttered, glancing at the papers with an odd look on her face. Yes, it worked, I nodded with a large grin, and how could I not be smiling? This little experiment had opened so many opportunities and fixed so many of my problems, that I was elated. With this, I could build an army, I could prepare the earth for what was to come. The possibilities were endless. Group, Alex's group, temporary title, click to change. Members, 4. Buildings, 10 bases. Facilities, none. Funds, 15.000.456.159 USD dollars. Special skills, none. Functions, none. Situation, none. Well, I'm glad it worked, I guess. Not sure what worked, but happy for you. The Ancient One smiled with a doubtful look on her face. At times I would forget she had no idea what I was doing most of the time. It worked, don't worry, I smiled at her with a reassuring look, but I need something else, time to get some books. The Ancient One chuckled in amusement, which is? Do you have any books with knowledge about golems, and magical buildings? I asked. This was the point of the territory. Books about golems, the Ancient One muttered deep in thought. You mean a book that explains their creation, right? I nodded. Oh, in that case, we have a few. The Ancient One smiled. Though, if golems it's what you are looking for, I recommend you visit Asgard. She winked. They have better golem-related knowledge last time I checked. I nodded. Will do, but I would still love to get the book you have about the subject. The Ancient One smiled, a playful smile that disappeared as soon as it came, being replaced by a look of confusion. This shouldn't be possible. I looked at her, worry filling my body. What? Nothing. I apologize once again. She was back to her usual self, but still I could feel the worry lingering around her. Her manner was fluctuating in an odd way for her. Nothing you have to worry about, it's a me problem, one that doesn't affect anyone else, she added, sensing my concern. If you say so, I sighed, putting my hand on her shoulder. You do know you can count on me, right? For anything. The Ancient One smiled warmly at me. I know. Now about those books, let me get a few copies. I have a few. You would rather consume them, right? Consume them sounded wrong. It was correct, but still, yes. Very well then, she smiled. I will also see what do we have about magical buildings. That would also be appreciated, I nodded. This not free, however. The Ancient One smirked. You will owe me a favor. World-ending type of favor? Or, babysit my cat type of favor? I asked. Babysit your cat type of favor, so a big favor, huh? I could live with that. Sure, I nodded, as she opened a portal to the library to get the books I wanted. The Ancient One POV. For the first time in years, I was at a loss. But still, felt compelled to help the very man that seemed to be the reason things were going off rails. I wonder why. Yo! A portal opened, with a furious Odin coming into view with his two raven pets, one on each shoulder. What in the 9 realms have you done? I looked at him, and laughed. You also saw the change, didn't you? You also saw Tilda my balls. Of course, I did. So tell me, what did you do? Odin barked. He wasn't angry in reality, he was simply concerned about the ripple Alex had just now created with whatever he had done. Nothing, I answered with a chuckle. Nothing. Odin repeated, narrowing his eye at me, a thing his two ravens imitated as he did so. It was all him, I nodded. I don't know what he did, but the moment I signed those papers, the future changed, everything I knew changed, even my death changed. How could a simple paper change an absolute point in time? I have no idea, but whatever he did, changed the script we have been following. For Borsbeard, Odin sighed, that kid will give me a heart attack. Asgardians don't get those. I rolled my eyes at him. It was an expression. Odin shot back. So, does this human has corn? Hugin asked, opening her wings. I guess. I replied. Odin, my lord, we have a mission to do. We'll be right back. Munin caught, flying with Hugin towards Alex. To the corn. Hugin caught in a battle cry. Well, I won't get them back anytime soon, Odin sighed, seeing his ravens fly away. So, Alex needs books about golems and magical buildings. He will most likely ask you for some, if not all of them soon enough, I said, looking at Odin. Is this related to the change? Odin asked, and I shrugged. It could be, I smiled. So, books about magical automatons and magical buildings, Odin chuckled. I will tell my wife. Oh, also, he might bring you some papers to sign, something about a formal alliance, I replied. A formal alliance? Odin chuckled. Well, if I don't sign, Thor will, so why not? I signed an alliance with Asgard, and like with the Ancient One, similar notifications appeared, telling me I was now on a formal alliance with Asgard. Astoundingly enough, Odin was waiting for me the moment I went to offer him the formal alliance, not only ready to sign but with a mountain of books I needed. He either saw I would come with his future vision, or the Ancient One told him. Either way, I left Asgard full of books, and with a new formal alliance in place. However, I soon found some difficulties, so to speak. Difficulties, I expected, I won't lie, but not to this magnitude. For example, the easiest golem to craft required magical crafting LV50. Now, normally this would be no problem, skills are easy to farm, but this particular skill took a shit ton of time to level up. And that wasn't even counting that I wanted to make this an automated system. I wanted a factory producing golems at all times. But for that, I needed an even higher level of crafting, according to the books, magical crafting LV200. Once I reached that level, I would be able to craft every single golem from the books I had gathered from both Asgard and Earth. It would most definitely be a bother, but I had no other choice if I wanted to have my own personal army to fight the threats that are to come. So, I started to farm. I had to craft millions of items I had no need of to get there. Right now, to level up, I was crafting a low-tier magical hammer that it was comically used to craft stuff, and it had taken me 1000 hammers to level up the skill once. I saved the hammers, who knows, perhaps they could be of use one day. 4 days, I did nothing but craft, with the eventual pause here and there to buy materials so that I could continue crafting. It was a vicious cycle, one that by my calculations would take me about 1 month to level up the skill to level 50. Apparently, leveling up crafting related skills was even harder than leveling up. It was during week 2 when I had finally reached magical crafting LV25, that I thought, who were the best in crafting? I mean, most of the books Asgard had given me came from a single place, Nidavla, so perhaps they had a way to fasten this process before I fill an entire dimension with gift shop items. Time to go back to Asgard, I said, cracking my neck. I needed a break. Crafting 100,000 hammers was a tiring endeavor, boring, and tiring. Opening a portal to Asgard, I stepped into the portal, only to be tackled by Thor. "Brother, you came." Thor beamed. He was like a dog, like a big powerful dog that can control lightning, Thor the golden retriever of thunder. "Yes, I did. How did you know where I was going to open my portal?" I asked, pushing Thor off me. "A mighty brother knows," Thor answered, not really answering my question. "Okay," I snorted, "is your dad available?" "He is," Thor nodded with a wide smile. "Let us walk together to Odin's hall." I said nothing and followed the god of thunder until Sif intercepted us. "Alex," Sif smiled, giving me a hug. "I was starting to think you didn't want to come back here anymore," she teased, and I laughed. "No, never, I just have a lot to do," I replied. "A man of duty, respectable." Sif smiled once again before she turned and started to talk away, swaying her hips a bit more than usual. "If you need any help training, let me know," she added, walking out of sight. "Don't worry, Sif, he has me, the mightiest warrior there is. If he needs help training, I shall as his brother help him," Thor shouted for Sif to hear, oblivious she was flirting with me. "So, Odin," I reminded the young god. "Right, follow me," brother Thor nodded, once again resuming our walk. At Odin's office, or solar, not sure what is the correct term for the office of a somewhat medieval futuristic king, I was greeted by the sight of Odin and Frigga sharing an intimate moment, Thankfully for me and Thor's sake, they were only kissing. Needless to say, this would be the last time I allowed Thor to open a door. He never knocks. I could have seen Odin naked, and that is a fate I do not want to live. Alex, Odin greeted, clearing his throat, and Frigga giggled. Odin, I greeted back. Thor. Thor added with a smile. What are you doing here? Odin asked with an annoyed look, all while I gave him a look that said, I am so sorry, your son said you were available, I did not want to cock-block you. I want to go to Nidavellir, I replied. Why? Frigga asked with a curious look. I want to learn more about crafting, and well, what best place than Nidavellir to do so? I replied. Say no more, brother. I shall take you. Thor declared with a smile, giving a one-armed hug. There you go, now leave, Odin said. Just like that, ha, thanks, I smiled at Odin. He's the crowned prince of Asgard, he can take you anywhere you want, you do not need my permission for such thing, Odin sighed. Now go, and for things like things, bother Thor, he bothers me all day saying how mighty you are. Well, he is. Thor shot back with a smile, grabbing me by the shoulders and showing me off to Odin. Thor, this is humiliating, and if you don't stop I will burn your silky hair, I growled. How dare he, moving me like a fucking trophy. Ah, my hair, Thor gasped, immediately dropping me. I shan't allow such a thing. Shan't my ass, don't do that again, I am not a chihuahua you show to others. I barked, hiding my clear amusement. I wasn't truly angry, but I still had to defend my honor. I don't know about chihuahuas or such, but if they are like you, then they are worthy of being shown. Thor nodded to himself. Leave. Now. Odin barked, as Frigga giggled, which in turn made us run out of the room. Odin was not a man you wanted to blue ball. With Thor, I traveled to the world of the dwarfs, Nidavellir. At first glance, the place looked like a massive blacksmith shop. The entire structure the dwarfs used as a planet seemed to be handmade, so to speak, but there was more to it than a simple glance could catch. Under the sole of my foot, I could feel the magic around surging with immense power, and it all emanated from a single point, the neutron star that was nearby. The magic I was feeling was systematically different than Asgard's. This magic was raw, untamed, without a form. It was intoxicating because it felt like the magic itself was begging to be shaped, to be transformed into anything your heart desired, like a piece of molten metal looking for a form. I guess it was to be expected. Nidavellir was known according to Thor as the Forge of the Universe. Nidavellir, the home of the dwarfs. Nidavellir is a neutron star and one of the 9 realms under Asgard's protection. This small star is orbited by a multi-ringed megastructure which served as the home world of the dwarfs. Many say that the dwarfs forged this planet, others say it was from this neutron star the dwarfs came to be. No one knows the real answer. While in Nidavellir all crafting-related skills get a 250% EXP buff. A 250% EXP buff in crafting, a dream come true to those in need of experience. Here we are, brother, Thor announced, the planet my mighty hammer was forged. Nidavellir. He grinned, giving me a one-armed hug, as he used his other arm to point at the entrance of the megastructure the dwarfs used as a planet. It looks awesome, I admitted. Even now from the outside of place, I could feel the entire structure vibrating as if welcoming me inside, as if sensing my desire to craft and make things. I know, Thor nodded with a satisfied smile, when all of the sudden, he gasped in realization, maybe we can get you a mighty weapon from here. Maybe a hammer. A smaller one, of course. I snorted, one thing at a time. Nonsense. Let's go. Thor barked with a smile, opening the doors for me. Who comes? Oh, Thor. As soon as Thor opened the door, a giant welcomed us. At first he looked angry, but then he seemed to have recognized the Prince of Asgard, all hostility gone. Dugrier Oricloak LV 110. My friend. Thor smiled, as he whispered into my ear, I have no idea who he is. I laughed. Who are you? The GI. Dwarf asked, I wonder why they call themselves dwarfs, they are bigger than the frost giants, by a lot. I am Thor's friend, I replied. He is being shy, he is my brother from another mother. Thor once again gave me a one-armed hug. I chuckled, we are, I nodded. He is mighty, Thor nodded. Okay, the dwarf muttered in confusion, before he asked, why are you here, brother of Thor? I required the assistance of the dwarfs in learning how to craft, I answered, and if possible, I want to sing an alliance with the dwarf king too. The dwarf turned to look at Thor, who simply grinned under his scrutinizing look. Eitri would do good to sign an alliance with him. Asgard did, he is, after all, my blood brother. Thor was adorable at times, he was like my younger brother, even though he was older. Well, that's for King Eitri to decide, the dwarf shrugged with just the hint of a smile. Follow me then. Where? I asked. To meet with our king, the dwarf replied. He will give you the answers you seek, be it for the alliance, or for the crafting classes. Eitri looked just like a massive Tyrion Lannister. It was shocking really how good had Marvel cast the actor to fill Eitri's role. Thor Eitri greeted, Eitri, King of Nidavellir LV 135. Eitri. Thor greeted with a smile, I present you, my brother, Alex the Mighty. I was not aware Odin had another kid, Eitri replied with a bemused look on his face. He is my brother from another mother and father, Thor replied with a smile. Oh, I see, well, welcome Alex, brother of Thor. Eitri smiled at me. Thanks for giving me an audience, your majesty, I bowed ever so lightly. PFF, don't worry, king is more of novelty title, I am first and upmost a blacksmith, and a blacksmith always has time for his friends, or clients. Eitri chuckled. My brother here seeks to form a formal alliance with Nidavellir, and also to learn how to craft weapons and such from the masters themselves. Thor said, beating me to it. I was just about to say the reason behind my visit. Oh, a formal alliance. Eitri said, looking at me, then turning to look at Thor. Has Asgard signed one with him? Of course, Thor nodded. Father says my brother is a mighty ally to have. Mighty this, mighty that. Thor had not read the dictionary I had given him a month ago. He really needed to increase his vocabulary. Then I don't see why Nidavellir would not ally themselves with him then. If the All-Father has, it means it's for the best. Eitri smiled. So, where do I have to sign? He added, as I apparated the papers. This had been easier than I thought. Eitri looked at the papers, and then at me. Do you see the problem here? The papers were human-sized. I do, I nodded, embarrassed. I had forgotten to change them. Let me fix that. With a sigh, I used my Eldritch transmutation to change the size of the papers to Gia. Dwarf size. Okay, let's see, Eitri muttered, putting on a pair of glasses to read the papers. 2 minutes later, he signed. You have formed a formal alliance with Nidavellir. All the members of Nidavellir now appear in the minimap. By forming a formal alliance with Nidavellir, you have gained a permanent EXP buff while on Nidavellir of 550%, out of Nidavellir 275% EXP. Holy fuck, those buffs. There, now, about learning how to craft, when can you start, little dwarf? Eitri asked with a smile. That's it for the video, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe. Also tell me in the comment section which kind of fanfiction you would like to watch next or if you have and recommendation.